Hello, my friends. I just wanted to drop some special bonus episodes into the feed that you probably have not heard unless you are a part or an early part of the Patreon for the Life Shift podcast. If you don't know, I do have a Patreon. It currently only has two tiers. One is a $3 a month tier just to support what I'm doing, helps cover production costs. And then there's a $5 tier, which will get you episodes early and just the, I guess, warm fuzzies for helping me out with the Life Shift podcast. But I used to have other tiers where people were so generous and were offering additional money each month to get bonus episodes and possible winnings of t-shirts and all sorts of things. And then I realized a couple months ago that I wasn't able to deliver what I wanted to, especially for those of you that were giving me the extra money. So right now we're just kind of doing the early episodes. You'll always get those. So if you want to support the Life Shift podcast, please jump over to patreon.com/the Life Shift podcast, and you can find that information there. But I come on here because I want to share a series of these bonus episodes that I did early on in the Patreon journey. There are like 20 plus episodes in which I had bonus recordings with previous guests. So I would go back and we would have a conversation about the experience of sharing their story on the Life Shift podcast, catch up on anything. And I think these are super important. And I know most of them did not see the light of day from outside of the Patreon. So I'm going to be dropping these episodes. Whatever you're listening to now is another episode. So I'm going to use the same intro for all of them. But here is one of the bonus episodes with a former guest from the Life Shift podcast. And if you like this, let me know because I'm thinking of bringing some of this back and talking to previous guests as I go into year 4. So enjoy this bonus episode that was once released on the Patreon feed. I'm Matt Gilhooly, and this is The Life Shift, candid conversations about the pivotal moments that have changed lives forever. I'm here with Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi.
That's what I call my Patreon supporters because I haven't come up with a clever name yet. But I do these
life
follow-up.
shifters. They're life shifters.
Oh, well, I could do that, yeah.
I don't know. We'll come up with a fun name.
People listening, what do you want to be called? I appreciate these Patreon supporters. I do this indie podcasting journey, as you're aware, is such an interesting beast. And then when I decide that I'm going to make it something where I can hear so many people's personal pivotal stories and how their lives have changed, it's like so good, but also just so much that I just didn't even expect. And I'm just so grateful that people like you chosen me or allowed me a little glimpse into your life. So just thank you for being a part of this journey and now a part of the family.
Well, I've loved watching this journey, and I feel like every story comes out when it's supposed to. And I just want to remind you, of the work that you're doing and how important it is. Because I genuinely believe that when someone gets to a point where they feel like they're supposed to tell their story, that's when they're supposed to tell it. And the people who are supposed to hear it are supposed to hear it. So I just want you to know, you are the conduit of that experience for so many people. And I think vulnerability and relatability again, you play such a role in yourself and the bringing the story out of others, and holding that space for them, I know can be quite difficult, especially in this, the world we live in. So thank you for what you're doing, because I don't think you realize what a big job it is and what an impact it's making.
I appreciate that. And, we recorded your episode 7 months ago, April. What month are we in? I don't even know what month we're in. Okay, so 6 months ago, we recorded in April of 2023, which seems like it wasn't that long ago, but apparently it was.
I mean, it's funny because it feels like not that long ago. And at the same time, it feels like it was 2 years ago.
I agree. Yeah. And then your episode came out in June, and you were episode 65. And today I just recorded episode 107, which I can't even believe that this journey has taken me this far. And to me, it feels like we just talked for the first time very recently. And to know that I've recorded 40 plus conversations since, it's fascinating to me.
You're on a journey. I love it. That's a lot of work, by the way. You should also be proud of, like, that is a lot of work.
Well, thank you. And your story, I'll remind people listening, your story, I refer back to it a lot in a lot of the conversations that I've had since, because, what I took from it more than anything else is that, yes, you face migraines, you face, some health concerns and such. But what I took from the way we had our conversation was, once you started leaning into what felt most real for you and most, like, you just leaned into you, things started to subside a little bit. And I don't know if that's still true, but that's what I took from that conversation in an inspiring way of, like, look, if it feels right and you're pushing it away, maybe lean into it to see what it brings you and see what it unfolds for you, whether that's a physical manifestation, whether that's some kind of spiritual thing, whatever that may be. That was the inspiration that I got from having the conversation with you, was just like, wow, as soon as she did that, things seemed to change a little bit. Did I hit anything there?
No, I think you're very much right. I think about that all the time of, if you had told me where I would be now 3 years ago, I would have told you were insane. There's no way I'd be doing that. There's no way I'd be on podcasts out, like, very boldly and publicly talking about my own medical issues, my own mental health issues, my own spiritual journey. And the more I talk about it, I think the more comfortable I am with it. And then also, the more comfortable I know other people are with it too. So, and I really believe that that's kind of one of the things that I'm meant to do in this world, is destigmatize so many things that have so much stigma around them. And then also just be relatable in any way possible, right? I mean, like, we're all still human. We're all still dealing with all the things. So it's not like all of a sudden one day you're like, I'm spiritual now, and then, like, everything gets better. Like, wouldn't that be just the most amazing thing?
That would be nice.
Still lots of lessons for us to learn, and still lots of ways to process them. And I'm still on that journey. And I also think we think that there's, like, a top that we're going to get to. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, then it will be done.
Well, we were sold that.
Yeah.
We were sold that.
Right. And somebody made that up and we all believed it. And I think that is the thing that I'm in it with right now, is where I'm always going to be on this journey. It's always going to morph and change and, pivot and like lots of little ways, but I'm always going to be on it. And I think in terms of spirituality and what that looks like for me, is I have had these massive aha moments of, I think the TikTok spirituality girls and boys telling us this is the way you're supposed to do something. And even all of the old spirituality books from, forever. And someone was just like, this is how I do it, so this is how it is. And I really come from the camp of, like, says who? Like, this works for you, may not work for somebody else. And I use that as, like, a metaphor for really what was going on in my health journey. Is everybody, when you've got migraines, it is the most annoying thing ever. Everyone always says to you, but have you tried this? And I think it's with any time you have any kind of chronic illness, right? People want to be helpful, but at the same time, you're like, I would just like to punch you in the face. Yes, I tried this. And to me, spirituality is very similar. It's like, well, I do it this way, so you should do it this way. And I live in the camp of, like, says who? No one's going to know who's right or wrong until we die. Why don't we just accept the fact that we all do things differently, and one way is not better than another way? So that's where I'm at right now in that place.
A question, when you were climbing the ladder of your 3 years ago life, that earlier version of your life, and kind of chasing the next milestone and the next success, were you someone that was very much like, you can do it your way, I'll do it my way? Or were you more like, here's the box, I need to stick around and stay in this box and do it within the realm of what everyone says we should do?
No, it's funny. I'm a Virgo. I was going to say I always colored outside the lines. I never colored outside the lines. I was a Virgo. But I am a Virgo, tried and true. But in terms of work, for me personally, I have been fired and I have been laid off from a job. I have now had 3 different entrepreneurial adventures. There's something really interesting about being an entrepreneur and then going back into corporate America, because you're like, I don't care if I get fired. I'll just go back to doing what I was doing. I was perfectly fine doing that. This is just another like experience. So because of that, in the last, I think like cycle of my career, and which was really focused on advertising, I was like, I'm just going to do things the way that I think are the like kind of out of the box, out of the lines, road, like rock and roll way of doing things. I'm like, let's see if it works. And it was a much more fun way to do work. There's some things you have to do. I mean, come on, we're still in like, we still have this society that we live in that we have to adhere to. But when you don't have fear of losing your job, you don't have fear of what's next, you actually have a freedom to do something that's a little more fun and a little different. Because if we continue to do things the way that we've always done them, we will die as a society. Like we have to innovate, we have to grow, we have to be thinking. And that's not just work-wise, right? It's emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, like community-wise. Like how are we changing the way that we've always done things to make them work better for who we are and the world that we live in now?
It's really hard. I think that society has played a big role in a lot of like my generation, especially, which is close to your generation, is that I think we were sold that, that's, we just have to follow the
Oh
rules. The
yeah.
next thing is the next thing. We have to go down that line. But what I'm finding, the more episodes that I record and the more times I hear from people behind the scenes that have heard an episode and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to put this out publicly, but I heard this episode and it really resonated with me, is your example here is that by sharing these stories, other people are now hearing a different way, or another approach that could be valuable for them to consider. And then maybe these small little inroads are being made because people are hearing different things. They're not, kind of following the prescription, if you will, of whatever life was supposed to do for them or however they were supposed to perform. And so I'm seeing value now in that, in just being able to talk to over 100 people that I've never met before, and learning that there's different ways, because I was very much mostly trauma based, but very much inside the lines, very much pleasing other people, proving my worth to other people. And so, even in this storytelling journey for me, it's been very valuable. And I'm sure you see that in your newest venture.
I do. And I also am kind of awestruck with how fast things are moving. In all honesty, like, what, a year ago, we all thought NFTs were like going to be the future. Really, they were just the they were just the beanie babies of our generation. I mean, I still think there's something there, but we'll see what happens. And then you've got the rise of AI in like a really interesting way. Like, what's that going to look like? So my own business is really pivoting and morphing in a way that like doesn't look familiar to me. I'm moving into, I think, a little more group work. I've really had to rethink, when I launched my business in this form, it was a few years ago, and I really thought of it as personal branding. And now I think that like influencers have ruined the word personal brand. I think brands have ruined the word purpose. I think that everyone has ruined the word authentic. And all of those words are such an important part of what I do. How do I take and reimagine what those words are, what they mean to my practice, and then also how I show up in the world? So it's almost like me going through my own kind of like soul searching, like brand exercise of what the next iteration of that looks like. And it's funny because I think a lot of it is being driven into a place for me of spiritual health. I think and what that aligns with when it comes to your origin story, which I know we've talked so much about, and bringing purpose to people. But spiritual health, if you're really thinking again about those four bodies of we corporate America and the world society is so like all about physical health, right? And we're all now becoming much more comfortable talking about mental health. Emotional health, we're not totally there yet with. I think we're really like skirting on the surface of what emotional health really means and its connection to mental health and physical health. Spiritual health, I don't think anybody has an idea of what that means. And I also think spiritual is a weird word. It's not necessarily religious. It's not mystic. It's not like astrology. Like what does that mean? So, and then when you bring in this idea of like connection and community and how we all work together in that space, my mind is blown. So this is like the space that I'm in right now of as a marketer and as a PR person and as a storyteller of how do I reimagine what all of this looks like for me, for my clients, and for the business I want to like continue to build. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like, I think a lot of us have worked for the man, if you will, or the woman, mostly the man. And we just did what those things were required of us. And it sounds like now you're like, well, first, what do I want? What do I feel? And how can I not be authentic? Because we're not going to use that word, but how can I really feel all this so that it's passion forward, or it just feels right. Whereas a lot of people are just very, capitalist mind and like, I could sell 1 million of these widgets over here. I don't really care about them, but I'll sell them. So it sounds like you're kind of in this space of like, let me find out what really feels right for me so that I can offer that to people and can kind of create that space.
Yes. And also on a business and entrepreneurial front, what is actually most impactful for my clients? Like what is work for me, and then what do they need too?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's driven by you.
It is driven by me. Everybody should like their job.
We'll talk about that a different time. So related to this podcast, I know you were at the time when we recorded, you were kind of doing the rounds of different podcasts. Was there anything that stood out about our conversation that you felt differently after recording this one? Or was it just like all the same? Because I know we've had conversations back and forth, and I'm just curious how this one differs in your experience.
I think your podcast is just different, and it's because you are different.
Thank you.
I think it's so much more about your story and its impact and its relatability and sharing and amplifying those stories of others for purpose, right? Like versus being brought on to do self-promotion. And as a PR person, PR people are like terrible at self-promotion because our entire jobs have been about promoting others. So it's like kind of an uncomfortable place for a lot of people to be because you're like, I still don't love talking about myself. But what I do love talking about is the work that I do and the people that I get to work with and the impact that I make. So I think I felt very seen and heard and like valued on your podcast. So thank you for that, because I think that's important.
Thank you for the kind words. And I put you on the spot so that you would say nice things so that I have it recorded so that if I needed to play it back. No, I agree. And sometimes I have these interactions with publicists that are pitching their clients or whatever. And everyone's pitch, not everyone, but a lot of the pitches are, here's my client, here's their one sheet, here are the bullet points that they can sell to your audience. And I'm just like, no, like that's not what I want. I really do want these to feel like two people sitting down, having a conversation that I wish I could overhear everyone having. And it just happens to be recorded. And then, like you said, the right person is hearing it at the time that they need to hear it, And so that's what drives me. And I know it's not for everyone, and I know that's okay. And it doesn't need to be for everyone. And that's why when I get like intimidated sometimes by guests that have had a lot of success in places that I haven't, And I'm like, why me? But so thank you for just being willing to just be on this podcast that's not like the other ones and not prescriptive and in that way.
I think too, we always forget that someone's success doesn't mean that it's going to take away from yours. We live in this like idea that I've maybe it's the week that we're in right now. I mean, again, the world just feels nuts, but I feel like I have so much angst and like just anger around social media and its need an algorithm to like push people to make a statement on something or to post something or to feel not worthy enough because their opinion didn't matter or because it wasn't agreed upon. And I think about that a lot, that my success isn't really doesn't make a difference of anybody else's, right? It's just kind of like, it is what, and it's also like, I'm the judge of it. So it's like, if I feel successful, if I feel fulfilled, if I feel like I'm making a difference, I guess that's where I need to sit. But that's a human practice. Like we have to like practice that because we've been conditioned to do the opposite.
I'm learning a lot of what I was conditioned to do and feel and grow through, my journey as I have these conversations like, oh yeah, that's why I feel the way that I do. And, after 40 plus years, it's a lot harder to break those immediately. But I have people on here. I'm like, why me? But it's wonderful. And I love this. In fact, after your story, I actually had you do a reading for me, which I've found fascinating. And I'm about to I put on my calendar to go back and listen to it again, because I think when I was in the moment, so, when you're in the moment, a lot of things happen. But even from your episode, another friend of mine who's gone through a lot of journey has also come to you and done a reading. And you've really changed their perspective on a lot of things in just a few short weeks. So I love that because you chose to be on this show, these kind of things are unfolding. And I guess this goes back to your earlier point of, things happen in the way that they're supposed to at the time that they're supposed to.
And if I impacted two people, I impacted two people. I love that so much. Like that brings me joy, that makes me feel like I'm living my purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have. And, the podcasting world is very weird. You don't hear a lot from people. There's not a place for people to comment about things. And so I'm sure that we've heard or we've had a lot of impact in your story and you sharing that. Did you hear from anyone or anybody that listened to your particular episode?
I didn't get reached out. Like no one emailed me, but, I do have people listen, like ask like, which one should I listen to? So I actually always send this one because I'm like, you should actually just listen to the whole thing because it's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no. So again, thank you for giving me space to actually tell my story.
When you are listening to podcasts in the real world, do you listen to podcasts?
Yes.
What kind of podcast are you typically drawn towards? Like, is there a genre? Are you going to tell me that you listen to like a Bravo podcast or something?
I listen to Bad Dates. Okay. It is.
I've heard of that.
It brings me just the giggles. And I feel like my life is so heavy in terms of PR and also similar to you, right? Of like hearing trauma from other people and feeling emotions that are not my emotions. Sometimes I'm just like, I just like need a giggle. I am super obsessed with the Sam Bankman-Fried case. I find it to be wildly entertaining. So there's a podcast following that case right now that is just blowing my mind. And I love like kind of cultural stuff. So it's funny because people always ask me all the time, like, do you listen to self-help or do you listen to like, and I don't, it's kind of like news related and nothing spiritual normally. Cause I'm like, I don't agree with that. When people talk about things, sometimes I totally do. And sometimes I'm just like, that's an interesting point of view, which I should probably do more of because, again, I find it fascinating how people resonate in this space. But sometimes I just need to laugh. I am also just a really big like music person. So Spotify is like the only app where I'm like, take all my data. You give me back all the things that I want in return in the best way possible. So yes, here's the data.
So you're someone that listens to podcasts on Spotify.
I do everything on Spotify.
Wow. I can't do it. I can't mix them. I can't mix my podcasts and my music. I don't know why. I don't know why.
All right.
So whatever. But, you know, I feel that way too. Like I don't listen to a lot of interview podcasts. I don't know why. Maybe I'll feel inadequate when there's a really great host or something. But I think, you know, I go to things that like are more story based or silly, like you kind of lean into for the bad dates kind of thing. Or I'll watch like trash TV and people are like, why are you watching trash TV? And I'm like, I just need something
It's
that
an
like
escape.
just, yeah.
It's easy.
Like,
It's
I can't
light.
relate. I can't relate to anything that's happening.
No.
So I'm just going to watch it.
I tell people all the time, it's like, well, what kind of TV do you watch? And I mean, obviously, like, you know, I love I love like The Bear and stuff like that. But like, if I'm going to sleep, I will watch baking before I go to sleep. I am a terrible baker. Terrible. I'm a good, really, really good cook. I'm a terrible baker. But it is like, I don't have dreams about it. It's like very calming. I always find people to be like very, like, bakers are all very like sweet and nice. It is like it is a calming thing for me. So like, you never know like what the weird thing is for somebody where they're like, huh, all right. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it makes sense. And I love that there's so many options for us now. It makes it hard as a podcaster to be in a space with so many other people, but I love kind of finding out what people gravitate towards because, you know, a lot of people are into true crime. I'm also into true crime. I like the puzzle of it.
Yeah.
I'm not into the salaciousness of the actual crime. It's more like, how did people put those pieces together? Because I think that's fascinating. But, you know, I love that you listen to junk.
You kind of have to. Yeah.
It's like mind candy, if you will.
Exactly.
If there's someone out there that's kind of like you were 3 years ago, like I can't imagine telling people my secrets or like coming out and telling people that I have these particular skills or I like to think about things in this way. If people are like in that space, but are kind of feeling compelled to share a story or share it with people, do you have any recommendations for people that like how to step into that truth or how to like, what's any advice you have for them?
Yes. Start with your trusted circle of friends.
Isn't that the hardest? I feel like that's so hard. It's easier to talk to strangers.
That's so interesting. I had the exact opposite. I was not ready for strangers to know my truths. I think you're right, circle of friends is going to be accepting no matter what you do. So for me, that was where I started. I mean, and the reality is too, is I just because again, I'm a medium, so I guess it's a different situation, but like I intuitively knew who I could tell things to and who I couldn't. Like who I was like, oh, I'm an Akashic record reader. And some people were like, oh yeah, great. But I knew who not to tell because I didn't want them to judge me or say, you know, like, and then you just get to a point where you're like, well, I've told enough people and you just rip the Band-Aid off. And
it feels so free.
And it feels so free, but that timeline is your timeline. I mean, I've got some clients who like are like, okay, I feel super empowered. I'm going to like post my story today. And I'm like, wow, okay. Like it took me years to do to share my truth. So I also think you need to trust yourself on your own timeline of what that looks like for you. Some people also don't need to broadcast, right? We do because that's what we needed in our journey. But some people just need to maybe tell the family member something they always wanted to tell the family member or their, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's just not that big.
Get out of their head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am someone that I find I just need to tell everybody all at once and it can be terrible. And I get a lot of people that are like, you know, on my, not the first, second, or third rung of friends, but they're like there and they're like, Matt, why are you putting this on the internet? And, you know, valid question. Why am I doing that? Why am I putting that out there? But then I think back to like, you know, people hearing these kind of stories. Yeah. It's like there are people out there. I'm not the only one feeling this. For so long, I felt like I was the only one that felt the way I did. And then I realized I'm not. And now by sharing that out there, two things happen. Someone else might read it, might feel less alone. But it's out there. It's done. I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking because now everyone can see it.
Yeah.
You know, and there it is, And so I think you're right about the timeline and also like who you tell. But secrets or things that are like there are very heavy sometimes. So I think letting it out is more helpful
Yeah,
than keeping it in.
I agree.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, I appreciate you. Whatever. You don't have to approve what I do. I think it's my own thing. And it took a while to get here. It took a while for me to be okay enough to be like, look, I'm having a really crappy day and it's okay. And it is what it is.
But I appreciate you normalizing that behavior.
Mm. There's another value, I guess, to it is that third, like you said earlier, is that we need to normalize a lot of this stuff.
I mean, one of the things I used to do with my team is on our Monday morning meeting, it was like, all right, guys, 1 to 5, how are we feeling? 1 being absolutely terrible and 5 being like, whoo, great. We didn't ask anybody what was actually going on, but I would then know how someone was going to show up in the meeting. I'm a 1. Okay, great. All right, good to know. I'm a 4, or you know what I mean? Like, and it was just an emotional check-in. Emotional check-in. How's everybody doing after the weekend? Okay, great. And then the ones, it was like, okay, do you need afterwards? I don't need to know what's going on, but like, what do you need from me as a manager today? What this week? Do you need extra space? Do you need extra time for therapy? Like, what do you need? I need this, or I just need to be alone. I need to be like just heads down work. Now, mind you, this is also when we'd go into an office 5 days a week and we all needed to show up with a smile on our face. Some of that has changed for some people, but I think that idea of normalizing just to be like, I've had a bad day, or I've got a lot going on, or everyone is emotionally burned out right now in ways that I don't think we have ever experienced. And I think that we have to acknowledge that other people are feeling the same way that we are around us. And then how do we show up in the world if that's the case? And I don't think everyone is like naturally built with empathy.
No. It goes to the conversation that I have a lot with people now, and I'm realizing I do it too much, is that like when you see someone for the first time, you're like, hey, how are you? And I'm just so conditioned. I think a lot of us are to just say good.
Oh, yeah.
And not, and it's for 2 reasons. One, it's like, do I want to go into it? Do I want to like bring down the mood if I'm not good? But also, is the person that I'm talking to prepared for my real response?
That. Are they ready to receive?
Right. Because then it gets more awkward, right? Because that person is expecting you to say, good, thanks, you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the more we can be real with each other, I mean, it doesn't have to be like the person at the grocery store or anything like that, but the people that are in our circle that we trust and care, we should feel free to let them know how we're feeling, and that maybe we don't need anything.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, I'm not having a great day. I'm fine, just not having a great day. So I'm just a little meh, and now someone knows. Now they know, like, your meeting thing, you know how to treat them. You know how to walk around them in a space that's comfortable.
Yes.
Do you find yourself saying good, thank you?
All the time. Yeah. Especially this
good?
week. Sometimes I'm good. I try to find moments of good every day. But again, especially the last couple weeks, people ask, how are you? And I'm like, great. And I'm like, wait, I'm actually not, hold on a second. I'm actually not great. Let me think about how I actually want to reply to that. And you're right. It is just such a natural, like answer that we just give. But you're also right in the sense that, like, there's sometimes where it's like, I don't want to, like, oh, why are you not great? What's going on? You're like, you are not the person that I want to get into this right now with. So sometimes it's just easier. But that's also like, I think everybody has that little like intuition within us to be like, is this somebody I want to get into this with? Or is this somebody I just want to say great and move on? That's okay. That, like, we all have permission to do that.
I agree. I appreciate you. I'm so happy that you're in my circle and that we know each other. And whenever I come out to the West Coast, I'm going to look you up. I know it's a big state, but I'll find you. And
I will make sure you find me. Don't you worry. No, and thank you for having me on. Again, I think you were doing such important work. And I hope, and I always, after all of these, I always get off the phone or the Zoom or whatever and go, God, I hope I said something that was helpful. So God, I hope I said something that was helpful.
Always. I think there's something about every conversation that I have. Sometimes I don't resonate deeply with a guest conversation, but I know based on experience that there's something in their story. It might not even be the most like thing that would stand out to everyone else,
Yeah.
but there's something that people connect with because they needed to hear it at that moment. It's like reading a book again, but you're like, this time it's amazing and you can't believe that you didn't see it the first time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I know you said something that will impact these listeners. So thank you for being you. Thank you for being a part of this. And thank you to the Patreon supporters for just like helping me fund using this piece of software and whatever else I do in the future. So again, thank you for being a part of this. And if you want to hear Elizabeth's full episode, that is episode 65. So check that out from June 6th, 2023. So thanks again.
Thank you.
For more information, please visit www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com.